I had all the tools, but I didn't believe that I had the power. When I had a suicide attempt, it was the greatest failure of my life. I took an entire bottle of anti-anxiety medication.
Oh, jeez.
So, and when I went to the hospital, the doctors conducted tests, and by the grace of God, not a single organ was damaged.
Wow.
So,
yeah,
I am profoundly lucky. Like, from a Christian perspective, you could say the ego died, and instead of me gloriously saying, I am the leader of my life, I can say, well, God is the leader of my life. Christ is the leader of my life. But from, more of like a secular, you could also look at it as, yes, her ego died, and she finally laid down that control and like surrendered into a higher power, a spirituality.
Let's repeat the non-conformist oath. I promise to be different. I promise to be unique. I promise not to repeat things other people say.
Welcome back. It's Positive Blatherings, and here we are at Rockbox Recording and Production in the Ember Studio. So I'm really excited, and I'm also going to do my best with this name, Maria Pascucci-Maciejewski.
You did it.
Did I do it?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Perfect. I'm so happy. So the interesting thing is that you came here with David Mamano, a mutual friend, and you were doing your own recording. And I was listening to your story, and I was like, that is an amazing story, and it's right in line with what we do here for Positive Blatherings. So, and the one thing that I do with this podcast is I don't do a lot of research. I don't do a lot of prep because I just want to have a conversation and see where the conversation goes. So first of all, thank you for coming here from Buffalo.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I love to talk. So this is
perfect.
I'm Italian.
There you go.
To talk.
There you go. Just be careful with your hands. Don't.
Yeah.
There's also a candle there.
I know. So I have like my hands here because otherwise they'll be all over the place.
So you're an entrepreneur. You have a business. What's the name of your business?
It's called You Can Bounce Back.
You Can Bounce Back. And just the sound of that gives me warm, fuzzy feelings because there are so many meanings to just the name of your business. You Can Bounce Back. Now, it's a business that's about physical help, or what it's like exercise and
physical, mental health empowerment.
Perfect.
And it's a literal. You can bounce back. So I teach mini trampoline aerobics. So you're literally jumping on a trampoline and bouncing back, and it's also bouncing back from adversity.
And you are no stranger to adversity. There's a lot of aspects to your story about adversity, but going back to the early days, what was the first adversarial thing you can remember? Like going back as far, the first problem that you can remember.
I think it was mostly the first sort of emotional trauma. I was in middle school and I was going through puberty and my hormones were severely unbalanced, and I had acne all over my face and chest and arms and back, and I was bullied in school, and the kids used to follow me down the hallway calling me zit face, and they like all teamed up against me and stopped speaking to me, and it was horrible, as you might imagine, to be 11 years old and to, look at a picture of yourself from the year earlier when your face was all clear and be crying and have kids teasing you. And so, and then I went to my doctor and I begged him to do something about it, and he put me on antibiotics, and it cleared up my skin. And then I felt confident walking without my hair like this covering up my face. And then I wanted to stay on the antibiotics because I didn't want to get teased, and I didn't know that there was any other solution to, dealing with that at that age. And so I was on antibiotics for 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And
wow.
That's not good. I don't recommend that to anyone.
And I know did that affect your ability to be on antibiotics now in your adult life? Like, are they less effective?
So I haven't taken antibiotics in well over 20 years now.
Okay.
So I just, and I work with a naturopathic doctor who specializes in natural medicine. And there's a lot of things that I do holistically that I don't take antibiotics.
And we'll definitely come back to that because the holistic side of your story was very interesting to me. I can resonate with the bullying. We were just talking about this earlier because one of the guys who works here was talking about his son is going to take like martial arts lessons. And I was recounting a story from when I was, I think, 12 years old and a bunch of my buddies went to go take Taekwondo. Okay. And so they had like a free class where you can come in and kind of look and see how it goes. And the sensei was a Korean gentleman, and he like just flat out made fun of my weight in front of all the kids. Okay. He was like, you need to stop eating all those cookies or something, because I was very inflexible. I couldn't do like the stretches that they were all doing. And it's people, at least, this was mid 1980s, right? So nowadays we know that if someone did that, there would be some serious retribution from the parents. But back then it was just like, whatever, you got to have thick skin or suck it up or whatever. Right. But I know, going back to my childhood, what happens to your self-confidence when, as a child, other people make fun of you, bully you, point out your flaws or anything like that. And how did those experiences affect you as you got older? Yeah, I feel like in many ways so like Brene Brown, she's a really big author and researcher, and she talks about perfectionism, and she says that like when people learn that they're not worthy of love and belonging, and that's what I did. I feel like I learned that I wasn't worthy of love and belonging unless I looked perfect. So I think in some ways, like I said, I led a TEDx talk at TEDx Buffalo Women in 2014, and I talked about perfectionism, and I said, I slapped on a thick coat of cover girl, and I covered right over the authentic, vulnerable girl within me. And so I think that it was a perfectionism in a sense with body image, but not in a sense of like, wanting to have like surgery and wanting to do all these things and never feeling. It was just, wanting to look my best. But for me, it really morphed into an academic perfectionism. And it was, be the good girl, be the superstar. There's a lot of mental health issues in my family. And, I had a family member who was battling a gambling addiction from a young age. So there was a lot of kind of upheaval in my household. So I think I also kind of unconsciously took on the role of, I was going to be the perfect superstar kid. And, just... I feel like control when I didn't feel like I had control. Because when I was a teenager, I also, I was having ruptured ovarian cysts. And then when I was in my 20s, I was diagnosed with endometriosis. So when I would go to the hospital and I would be throwing up and I would be in so much pain that I couldn't walk. And all of these things in my life were happening, and I just felt like I had no control over these areas of my life. So, but I can control, I can control my grades, and I can control like those types of things in my life. Well, I mean, it's something to be said about the fact that you could say that this was, you went in a positive direction. A lot of people, when they experience those things, go into a completely different direction where it turns into a lot of drug use and things like that. True. For me, growing up and being made fun of all the time, I almost wish that I went to like the perfectionist side. Yeah. But I went, it was kind of opposite. I closed in on myself and it became difficult for me to get out there and do things, and it held me back in a lot of ways. But from what it looks like, you've accomplished quite a bit in your life. So did you have any trouble putting yourself out there for things like volunteering for things or going up in front of a crowd or anything like that? Did any of that happen to you?
So I vividly remember when I was in high school, one of my friend, she just stopped being my friend overnight, and I remember being devastated, and I wrote about it. I wrote a poem, and it was called "A Strength Within," and I put the poem in my school magazine, and I put it anonymously. And my teacher, I told my teacher in confidence, my Spanish teacher, that I was the one who wrote it because she was raving about it in her class. And then she was so excited, she went and told the whole class that I wrote it without me, oh my God, no, that was supposed to be anonymous, don't tell anybody. And my friend, who realized that the poem was about her, she never spoke to me again, and just that was horrible.
She kind of wasn't going to speak to you again anyway.
Right,
so.
Right. But no, as far as putting myself out there, so when I was in college, I really revved up on the perfectionism. I remember my first semester in college, I got a 3.94 GPA. Wow. And my boss at the time, I was working at the Dollar Tree, and my boss said, oh, that's fantastic. Wow, I'm shocked. But he goes, just so you know, college is really hard. So consistently getting grades like that's impossible.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, for me, that was
really nice guy.
Yeah, right. I know. But for me, that was challenge accepted.
Right.
And then by the end of 4 years, I went to Canisius College in Buffalo, really rigorous academic schedule. And I had a double major in English and history, a minor in writing, and a concentration in women's studies. Wow. And after 4 years of striving for perfect grades and working 2 part-time jobs, I had a 3.92 GPA that I graduated with, but I also graduated with stress and anxiety-induced health problems, and I was having panic attacks in the bathroom during final exams, and I was dealing with a lot of the hidden costs of perfectionism. And I think that that's something that people oftentimes don't think about in our society. We look at, the kids that are, at risk for flunking out of school and at risk for, drugs and all that kind of stuff, but don't often think about the kids that are the valedictorians and the kids that are the, summa cum laude graduates, and that sometimes they can be at risk too. Mm-hmm. And it's the what's going on behind the perfect resume. And so after I graduated from college, I did a lot of self-work. I did counseling. I read all the kinds of books on perfectionism, and I started sharing my story. And I decided that I wanted to launch a business with these issues, because I was a freelance writer and I was also writing for the Buffalo News. And I started sharing my story about perfectionism in my writings, and I had so many students, parents, and educators that were emailing me. Social media wasn't there at the time, but right. They were emailing me, telling me all about their stories and how they save my articles and they reread them every time they have a test and they're going to have a panic attack. And so I knew that I wasn't the only one. I was essentially conducting market research for my business, but I didn't realize that at the time. I was just freelance writing. So then I launched a business when I was 27. I launched a business called Campus Calm, CALM, so campuscalm.com, and I still do that business occasionally, but I ran that business for a good 15 years, and I was speaking at college student leadership conferences and high schools. So I would travel around the country and I would speak on college campuses about the pressure to be perfect and how it's a barrier to student health, confidence, and resilience building.
So that's interesting. I'm really curious about your focus on helping others has been very prominent. Yeah. And I'm wondering where that came from. It's not everybody would go down to the I want to help others. Yeah. You found something within yourself and it resonated with others, and then you turned that into, a career about helping other people. Yeah. Where did that come from?
I just feel like it's this innate drive within me that self-expression is something that helps me to heal from things that I've gone through in my own life. And then I've always had this love of helping other people. It I don't know, it feeds my soul, and it helps bring meaning to what I've gone through in my life. And that what I went through and the pain that I went through, that it wasn't for nothing, that something good came out of it. And I feel like it's a way for me to kind of take back my own power, to be able to share my story in a way that serves someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. We talk a lot about your power, like giving your power over to other things and worrying about things that you can't control and all of that, and how it relates to your own energy when you approach anything, what your energy inside is, and that's going to dictate like sort of whether or not it's a successful thing that you do, or you know what I mean. So when you're going into, let's say, an interview, and you don't want to go into that interview, or you don't like the person or something, and you, even though you're like, I'm going to do my best, but you still deep down you don't think that it's going to go well, and then it doesn't go well because that's what you felt, that's what your energy was like. And that's become something in the last year that's been very important to me, going into things with the right kind of energy.
Yes.
And I get a sense that you're very in tune with energy work. And what are some of the practices that you do kind of on a daily basis to put yourself in that right frame of energy for when you're dealing with other people, when you're helping other people, or even when you're dealing with your own problems in your daily life?
Sure. So it's interesting. I'm trained as a life coach, and through the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, and through IPEC, we are trained in core energy coaching, and specifically through a tool, and it's called Energy Leadership. So I'm actually trained to lead energy leadership index assessments, where you can actually, it's really cool. You actually get, you take it's like a 20-minute online assessment, and then the results, it gives me a good framework to do coaching with somebody, but you can actually pinpoint and see how much energy within you is catabolic energy, meaning that it's draining to the body, draining to everyone else around you, and it breaks down your body, versus anabolic energy that raises you up. And you can measure how much of your energy right now is catabolic or anabolic. And then the really cool thing is it measures how you show up in life when everything is working according to plan for yourself. And then it measures your energetic stress reaction and where you go in periods of stress. And that's really fascinating to me. So, I'm trained in this, but then as far as what do I do on a daily basis and practices for energy, sort of energy management?
Yeah.
This is something that's a lot newer to me just in the past year and a half. And it's really a faith-based energy. So I'm a Christian, and I go to church every week, to a non-denominational church, and really listening to like worship music and like prayer, time spent with God, that helps me, and it helps to center me. And then I do things every day like rebounding, which is jumping on my mini trampoline. And because for me, that's something that I love so much, and it gets me in touch with that inner child that's within myself, because nothing makes you feel like a kid more than jumping on a trampoline. And it's just something that I love it. It's great for fitness. It's great for an endorphin release. But it's just, like I said, it's something that it helps me to feel like I'm that fearless kid and I can do anything. So it helps me tap into the creative side of me.
Is it Do you think it's something having to do with because you had such a rough go when you were a kid? It's almost like a do-over in a way.
Yeah, I think so in a way. That's interesting.
So what I want to know, where did the mini trampoline come from?
Yeah.
Like, how did you stumble upon that whole thing?
Yeah. So in 2015, I started Rebounding, and I was taking, I'm certified as a nutrition coach as well. So I was taking a nutrition coach training program. And in the nutrition training program, they talked about the benefits of rebounding and how it was really good for boosting lymphatic system health. So if you have any type of like autoimmune issues, rebounding is really good for. So I have certain autoimmune issues, probably from 12 years of antibiotic use.
Right.
So anyway, I bought just this cheapy $40 rebounder from Walmart, and I started jumping on it, and I loved rebounding, and it was like completely worn out within 6 months. So then my husband and I started researching good rebounders on the market, and then we invested in a Bellicon rebounder, and it's like $900 rebounder, and it has sophisticated suspension system and the bungee cords, and the second it came in the mail and I jumped on it, I was 100% in love, and I was within 2 months I was flying to New York City to get certified as a Bellicon rebounding fitness instructor.
Nice.
And I've been rebounding ever since.
That's interesting because I've never actually heard of rebounding. If you said, I'm into rebounding, I'd be like,
I know, like,
what do you play basketball?
Yeah.
Like, what's the deal?
Right.
It's very interesting. So what is it? Actually, I know that you're bouncing on a mini trampoline, but what is it that you're doing? Is it along with music? Is there different things that you do?
So for me, I was a dancer growing up. So I did tap and ballet for 10 years. And so all of my classes that I teach, and I have, as of last month, I just started a brand new YouTube channel, and I'm teaching rebounding fitness classes on YouTube. And it's bounced to the beat, and it's like dance aerobics.
Oh.
It's for my type of classes, it's like mini trampoline meets a wedding reception. And and then I have like the resistance bands. So I have like resistance bands that I put around my legs while I'm jumping, and boy, is that really, that's a good workout, really good workout. And, and then I'll be doing strength training throughout as well. And I teach that in my classes, and just making fitness fun.
Yeah. And
the ladies that take my classes, it has to be fun. So fun.
It has to be fun for people to want to do it. Like nobody's made jogging fun.
Right.
So it's not something I ever want to do, but I'm like, I really need to do some kind of aerobics. I need to get my heart rate up. I need to be more active. I got a rowing machine. I got a hydro, and it's got the screen on it, so I can row like down, down in Chicago, or I can row, the Danube or something like that.
Yes.
And it's pretty cool, and it keeps my mind off the fact that I'm sitting there rowing in my basement. And, but having fun is such an important aspect to a good workout. I mean, you want to do it. And then when you do it, you're having fun and you don't realize you're doing work, and the time goes by quicker. I'm just amazed because I've never heard of rebounding, and it's a pretty big thing, isn't it?
It is. And there's a lot of, there's studies that show that it's more effective than running, but much less impact on the body. And that's another thing that I love about it, is that you can perform medium to high intensity aerobics, but because the rebounder is absorbing the shock on the body, you're not in pain. So after a workout, your legs are killing you, and it's that whole belief of like no pain, no gain.
Right.
That's not what rebounding is. Like, I'm not in pain, and that's incredible, and I love that.
How long is a typical rebounding exercise session? Like 45 minutes or?
Yeah. So like when I teach a class in person in Buffalo, I actually have a home studio, and I have ladies that just come right to my house. My husband converted our garage into a studio.
Nice.
And then in the summertime, we're outside in the backyard, and I also teach pool aerobics in the backyard in the summer. And yeah, so it's a good time, but about 45, 50 minutes for a class. But then when I'm teaching classes on YouTube, I'm teaching like high intensity 15 minutes or a half an hour workout, because I find that the longer classes don't attract as many views as, the just like the get in and get out 20 minutes.
That's the world we live in today
Right.
is all about short clips.
Yes.
Give us the short stuff in
Right.
and out really quickly.
Right.
It's kind of interesting. Switching gears completely right now. How do you, and just from a mental health point of view, what do you think the impact that social media has had on people as far as mental health, especially kids? I mean, I just feel like it's, as much as I like to see the good in the social media and the connective part of it, the rest of it, it's just, I wrestle with this every day. Like, is this even good for us? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, it has the positives and the negatives. The positive is that I wouldn't be able to do any of the businesses that I've done in the past 20 years if I didn't have the internet.
Right.
So I'm highly grateful for it. I think it's a tool that can be used for a lot of good, and it's a tool that can be used for a lot of not so good things.
Yeah.
I know that online bullying is a huge issue. So, what I would have faced growing up today might have been vastly different. Like I was, teased and bullied in school, but some of these kids today are getting teased and bullied online from kids all around the world.
It's like before when we were younger, you come home and that's kind of should be your safe space.
Sure.
And now that follows them. Now that they, their phones, that it's happening, and gosh, I can't. I'm grateful for the fact that I was born in 1973 and I'm not growing up now. And do you have kids?
Yeah.
So how old are your kids?
I just have one, Alex. He's 5 years old.
Oh, he's 5.
Yeah,
all right. Beautiful.
he's little.
He's a little guy. So my kids are 22, 21, and 19.
Okay.
So I'm grateful that they grew up kind of before this started happening. Like when they were really little, we didn't have smartphones. We just had the flip phone.
Okay.
So it was kind of not as bad.
Yeah.
But it's still, made a huge difference in their later childhood.
Sure.
Middle school, high school, and also they were in middle school and high school during the pandemic, which was hard on everybody.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, like I see this even with my own son, like addiction, media addiction, like a cell phone, tablets. If we let him, he would want to sit there and watch his tablet all day long. Yeah. And then, the longer he watches it, the worse it is because it's addictive. So, my husband and I have set a lot of limits with that because we don't want the negative side effects of all that. That's not healthy. I think the other part of it is like with social media. I can't remember the guy who said it was Steve something. He said we can. The problem with like Facebook and Instagram and everything is that we compare our behind the scenes with everybody else's highlight reel.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And then you start feeling like you're not good enough because look at that person. They're on a boat or whatever, all of the things. And we start comparing our lives to other people's lives, even though that a lot of times what we're seeing on their social media isn't exactly, they look like they're doing great and really they're miserable or something like that. Right.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And I think as a business owner, and right now, like I have You Can Bounce Back is a brand new business. And I think sometimes it's difficult. You can get caught in the trap of, because social media is so, you see everything. There's no hiding behind certain things. Like, for example, when I launched Campus Calm 20 some years ago, My husband, he was trained as a graphic designer, so he learned web design to do my website. And my website was beautiful, and it looked like I was running a big national company. And that was part of a reason of how I was able to start interviewing high-level experts for my business, which then brought in more interest and more people started subscribing to my newsletter. And then I started getting invitations to speak on college campuses because it looked like a big national entity. And plus, I was really open with sharing my story about academic perfectionism. Whereas today, you can build the beautiful website and everything to make yourself look like you have this big national presence.
Right.
But if you have 135 Facebook followers or 76 Instagram followers, it's easier to see, okay, she's a newbie, she's just starting out.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
And it's also a lot harder to cut through these days, would you say? I
think so.
Just because there's so much.
Yes.
Like look at podcasts. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got a podcast, which I'm grateful for because I have a business that helps people produce podcasts.
Right.
But also at the same time, everybody has a podcast. So how is your podcast going to cut through all of the other podcasts?
Right.
And in that same respect, you have a business that's based on physical fitness and mental health. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have gotten into that space since the pandemic.
Sure.
How is that? Like, what are some of the things that you do to cut through to separate yourself from the other people that are doing it? Do you have a lot of competition in the rebound space?
Well, so just from the fitness perspective on YouTube, the one thing that and quite frankly, it drives me crazy is that in the U.S. we have the highest, what do you call it? When you can play popular music with your video, so if I'm producing a Rebounding fitness video, I am purchasing royalty-free music that I can play in my fitness videos.
Right. And
popular music, I cannot play in my videos.
Copyright.
They will get flagged from YouTube in a second. But people like to jump to popular music.
Yeah.
And who wouldn't? I like it too.
Sure.
But when you're doing videos on YouTube, you're competing with other people from all around the world. And people in other countries have much more lax streaming rights that they're dealing with. So they're jumping to popular music in their videos. And I can't.
I've always wondered about that because I see that too. I see people that are posting things that have popular music in it. And I'm like, we put 5 bars of a popular song in something and it gets flagged right away. I'm like, how are they able to do that?
I think I've read a little bit about it. I think it's because a majority of the music is coming out of the U.S. Mm-hmm. So the laws are like the tightest in the U.S. Yeah. So I'm not sure.
That's a whole aspect
other
of YouTube that blows my mind on a regular basis. And we actually subscribe to a copyright, a music library that we can use, and it still gets flagged.
Okay.
So you have to go in and you have to dispute it, and you have to put in like, hey, I have the license, and then they're like, oh, okay.
Yep.
So I feel your pain.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. But when you're doing your classes in person, you play whatever you want.
Yeah, when I'm doing classes in person, we're doing like I'm jumping to
and those are better classes anyway.
We're doing like 60s, 70s, and 80s classic rock, and then we're jumping to 90s hip hop.
What's your favorite? What do you like best?
Oh God, honestly, I can't even pick. I love it all. Like wedding reception type music. Anything from We Are Family to It's Raining Men to Snoop and Dre, and then we're doing J-Lo. Then I'm all over the place.
Slide to the right.
Actually, that's one of my favorite songs to do, both at a wedding and on a rebounder. So
that's cool.
The other thing that I do to differentiate myself in business is to just be very authentic and sharing my story, which then connects with people. So if I'm launching a business, chances are it's because I survived some personal experience and now I want to give back and help others with, not only sharing my story, but then using my coaching background and expertise and fitness and all of that.
What's something that you've learned in your many years of being an entrepreneur that you think people should know right off the bat? Maybe something that took you a while to learn that you wish you knew when you started.
You know what? It's funny. It brings me back to Dave Mamano and a quote he said to me so many years ago. And he's like, when I was just starting public speaking in the college market, and he's like, Maria, just be yourself. You're a likable person.
Yeah.
And then the perfectionist part of me was like, well, be myself. I'm like, that's not helpful. I want tutorials. Like, help me. And I did. Like, I really started perfecting, and I have a gift of memorization, which is a gift, but it's also a curse because I would go out and I would memorize an entire 60-minute speech. Every word was memorized. And I would get out there and I would deliver these speeches, and they would sound really, I would get students, they would be like, wow, I could never deliver a speech like that. That was amazing. But was I really seeking to connect with them, or was I seeking to impress them? Was it driven from ego, or was it really driven from service?
Interesting.
And then the title of my TEDx talk from TEDx Buffalo Women is called Recovering Perfectionist, My Ass. And the reason why it was called that was after delivering a speech on a college campus, I received student feedback, and one student wrote, and I will never forget it, wrote on the anonymous feedback form, not one yeah, or in an entire 60-minute speech. And then the student wrote, Recovering Perfectionist, my ass.
I love that. And that speaks volumes. That's why it stuck with you, because they're like, all right, so you are you practicing what you preach here?
Right. Exactly.
You're applying your perfectionism to a speech that is talking about the opposite.
Exactly. So then I really started becoming more comfortable with when I would deliver a speech, I'd have the PowerPoint and I would know what I was going to say, but everything wasn't scripted, and I allowed myself to just be more myself, and it was more likable and it was more relatable and more authentic. And like right now, doing this interview with you or this conversation 10, 15 years ago, I would have had to have all the questions in advance because I would have to have scripted all my answers, and everything
would
have
been difficult because I don't have any questions prepared.
Right. And now I don't know, it's just more free flowing and relaxing. But I also think that it comes down to, even 2 years ago, I would have been a lot more afraid to do this. And then that leads me into what I went through. But what I went through in the past 2 years completely changed me forever.
And what did you go through in the last 2 years? Yeah.
So, and this is why I launched YouCanBounceBack.com, the new business. So when the summer of 2024, there was a lot of precursors to this. I was going through like early perimenopause issues, so my hormones were messed up again, and physically that was throwing off my body. And then I was going through a period of intense chronic stress for over 3 years, and there was a rift in my family, and I don't share the details why, but I lost key members of my family that haven't spoken to me in 3.5 years, and that was devastating to me, and it still is, but I've worked through it and I'm at peace with it now. But for years I was absolutely devastated, and it was chronic anger and hurt and anxiety and fear and all of these things. And I did everything that I could to keep myself in a good place mentally, and I practiced everything that I preach. So when you're in periods of chronic high stress, I was eating incredibly healthy. I have food allergies, so I can't do gluten or dairy, but I eat a 98% organic diet. I eat a whole foods real diet that's very high in fruits and vegetables. And I take nutritional supplements, and I work with a naturopathic doctor, and I exercise every day, and I try to prioritize sleep. I've had a lot of issues with insomnia and sleep anxiety in my life. And I'm not somebody who's a generalized anxiety disorder where I'm anxious about everything. My anxiety was always centered around, it was very situational. It was centered around family stuff, and it was centered around, will I be able to sleep tonight? And those were the two major anxiety drivers.
How far back does your insomnia go?
When I was 25 years old. So my mom has given me permission to share this, but my mom has a history of depression, and she had her first major issue with depression when I was 25. And it was very traumatic for me to watch that, and I had insomnia. And then I started to fear not being able to sleep. And then that turned into a chronic sleep anxiety that I've dealt with for well over 20 years. So that, and I've done so much work on releasing trauma and coaching and inner child work and therapy. And I've done everything to help to manage with all of this. And despite I was a mental health speaker in the college market, I wrote a book on perfectionism and anxiety. I led a TEDx talk. I did all this stuff, and I practiced what I preached, but it still got the best of me. And in the summer of 2024, I had a breakdown. I had a complete nervous system breakdown. And for the first time in my life, I had to go on an antidepressant, and the medication that I was put on in September of 2024 was clearly the wrong medication for me, because I was starting to have suicidal thoughts, and the medications took those suicidal thoughts and just magnified them by 100.
And they're supposed to do the opposite, right?
Right. But, that can be one of the side effects. And, I have a really sensitive system to begin with, and just the medication, I was having horrible side effects, and I wasn't sleeping, and I was going through a period of time of 4.5 months of chronic insomnia. No matter what medication I took, no matter what supplements I took, it didn't matter. And I was sleeping 3 hours a night. I was out of my mind with exhaustion. I was trying to raise my son, who was 4 years old, and in the middle of family calamity. And my mom, she had a relapse with depression that lasted a year. So I lost key family members in my life. Then I lost my mom for a year. Then I was suffering from my own stuff. And then on top of everything else, I started. It's just as part of what happened to me when I had this nervous system breakdown. My naturopathic doctor explained to me after that my adrenals just crashed, and my adrenals were not working. So they fried, and I was getting chronic nausea to the point where I couldn't keep food down, and I lost it was about 15 pounds. And I'm thin to begin with, so I looked anorexic. I was wearing layers of clothing because it was freezing. Yeah. And so after dealing with 4.5 months of this, I had a suicide attempt, and I was in a psychiatric unit of a hospital for 34 days over the holidays. So from 2 days after Thanksgiving in 2024 until January 2nd of 2025, I was in a psychiatric hospital unit, and I don't recommend that.
Yeah.
It was not a fun, pleasant place to be.
Yeah. I've not heard good stories
about that. It was horrible.
Yeah.
I was in 2 different hospital units. I don't want to say it was all horrible. So first of all, I was in a waiting room for 3 days with over 40 psychiatric patients. That was horrid. I saw people walking around naked while chanting. I saw multiple fights, multiple people screaming and swearing, threatening to murder guards.
And that's not going to help you.
No. No.
Wow.
It was horrible. And then the first unit that I was placed in, it was the holidays, so they were overcrowded and not enough beds, not enough units, not enough staff. So the unit that I was placed in, apparently they normally separate out some of the worst, but they weren't able to do that. So I was hit in the head twice by a female patient who has schizophrenia. Oh, and so that was pretty traumatic. And the psychiatrist that I was assigned to in the first unit, he told me that I was one of the most depressed patients that he'd ever seen. And he said that his recommendation for me was electroconvulsive ECT therapy,
electroshock treatment.
Yeah. And, even in the state that I was in, and I was filled with so much shame and I was so depressed because how could I have done something like that? That's what I was telling myself. How could I have done that to my son? How could I have done that to my husband? And but even in that state, I knew enough to tell my psychiatrist, no, I don't want that treatment. And my family agreed. They did not want me to have that treatment, but he pushed it. And for over 2 weeks, he pressured me to undergo it, to the point where he even said to my family members that if I worsened under his care, that he would get a court order and he would force me to have the treatment.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So after I was hit in the head the second time by the same patient who has schizophrenia, I have somebody, and I just say a guardian angel on the inside at the hospital who helped me to get transferred into, it was the psychiatric geriatric unit. And because that unit, I guess, was a much better unit and it was a lot safer. There wasn't a lot of fights. I saw a lot of fights in the unit that I was in and witnessed a lot of stuff. And so the second unit that I was in, it was a safer unit. I had a female psychiatrist, and she was kind and she was caring. And the patients, a lot of the patients took me under their wing like I was their daughter or their granddaughter. And it was sweet. I mean, it still wasn't pleasant. It doesn't matter. Some of the elderly people were screaming and swearing and banging on doors, yelling at the staff. But I was safe. So it was a more pleasant experience than the first unit.
Wow.
It's still not good.
And what's blowing my mind is that this was recent.
Yeah.
This is not too long ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not even a year ago. It was.
And I know you can't recount all of it, but what was the major catalyst that turned you around, that got you on the path that you're on now?
So a lot of different things, but it was my husband helped. He visited me every day for 34 days, and he helped me to forgive myself enough to believe that I was worthy to come home from the hospital, because I was in such a bad shame spiral. So he really helped me. He saved my life. I don't even know if I would have gotten out of that hospital without him, honestly. I was resigned to spend the rest of my life in a hospital. That's how bad it was. I had completely given up hope. When I got home from the hospital, my aunt gave me a daily devotional book. It was called Jesus Calling. So a lot of my own faith development helped to bring me on to a good path. You know, in the beginning, my prayers were like, you know, God, please just turn the clocks back and let it be a year ago and let me go to sleep and let me wake up and let this all have been a nightmare. You know, like like the Christmas story where I learned my lesson and now I'm going to wake up and I get to do it over again. Yeah. And then obviously I accepted that wasn't happening. I was waking up every day and it wasn't a year and a half ago, even though I wanted it to be. So then it was more of, okay, so if I'm in this place now, how can I accept this and how can I take steps to dig myself out of this pit? And then that's what I started doing. And then all of my training with coach training with energy leadership and development helped because I had all the tools, but I didn't believe that I had the power because all of those tools, I had those tools before, but I still, like the nervous breakdown, for me, it felt like a failure. I had all the tools and I had all the knowledge, but I still fell anyway, and that was my failure. And that was the perfectionism. Yeah, yeah. And I think for me,
give yourself a little grace.
Right. And I think for me, it was funny, like when I had a suicide attempt, it was the greatest it was the greatest failure of my life, and it saved me.
Right, because you couldn't go through with it. You couldn't do it properly, or
I took an entire bottle of anti-anxiety medication.
Oh, jeez.
So, and when I went to the hospital, the doctors conducted tests, and by the grace of God, not a single organ was damaged.
Wow.
So. Yeah, I am profoundly lucky.
I can see how that would bolster your faith.
Yeah,
when that happens, and you're like, okay,
yeah,
somebody was looking after me. Something was on my side for once.
Yes. And I think part of it is, okay, so like from a Christian perspective, you could say the ego died, and instead of me gloriously saying, I am the leader of my life, I can say, well, God is the leader of my life. Christ is the leader of my life. But from, more of like a secular, you could also look at it as, yes, her ego died and she finally laid down that control and like surrendered into a higher power, a spirituality. Do you know what I mean? It could be interpreted many different ways.
Sure. I mean, and, I'm 7 years sober, and going into the idea of sobriety, at least from the 12-step program, they talk about you have to surrender to that. You have to admit that you have no control.
Yes.
And you give your power over to a higher power.
Yes.
And that has to be the first step. It has to be. So
exactly.
I'm first of all, I'm glad that you were able to do that because you're here.
Yeah.
And I've met your husband before, and he's like, he needs to wear a cape more. Yeah. Because he's a Superman without a doubt. And I credit where I am in my life right now and all the good things that I have, I wouldn't have if it weren't for my wife. And, we've been married for, it would be 24 years this year. And there's a lot of, it wasn't all easy. It wasn't all beds of roses and stuff, but we each got each other here, for better or for worse. And it's just a great testament when you have that person who can, save your life. Yeah. Yeah. And to be thankful about that every day is.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Support, family support of friends. It's paramount to recovery. And like what I'm doing now with You Can Bounce Back, not everybody is blessed to have that, to have that successful marriage or that partnership or someplace, that you can turn to. And so I hope that I can help and be an inspiration to somebody else who's going through a hard time. Yeah. And, since I launched that business, I've had several people sending me private messages and emails just telling me that, I've inspired them to keep going because they are battling depression issues and anxiety, and they have, I think the numbers from like the CDC say that over 12 million people a year have seriously thought about suicide. And so it's a huge issue. And over the World Health Organization says over 1 billion people struggle with mental health issues worldwide. Yeah. It's a huge issue. And then I think the WHO, they also said that governments spend approximately 2% of their budgets on mental health. So it's just it's a huge issue, and it doesn't have enough attention or focus.
Yeah.
You know, there are strides that have been made, but I think we have a long way to go. And I think one of the key missing pieces in the mental health recovery space is nutrition and fitness.
Absolutely.
In nutrition today, like I've taken a course from the University of Canterbury in New Zealand, and it was by there's researchers there that have conducted peer-reviewed scientific research studies on mental health and nutrition, and they've found that nutrition is...
I mean, you know, your microbiome, your
Yes.
gut health is so key
Yep.
to everything in your
Yes.
body. I mean, everything, especially mental health. Mm-hmm. If you have a bad diet, it's going to exacerbate things that
Right.
may not be right to begin with.
Right.
I agree 100%, and I'm a huge proponent to better education for nutrition in med school. Like they need to be teaching
Absolutely.
doctors this. There's doctors, MDs that don't know anything about a good diet.
Yes.
It's, you know, that,
absolutely.
Comparatively.
So when I was to give you an example, when I was in the psychiatric hospital unit with the first psychiatrist who wanted me to do the electroconvulsive therapy, I went from having a 98% organic diet, gluten-free, dairy-free, I don't eat like conventional sugar,
to hospital food.
So not only was I obviously struggling with severe mental health issues, my physical health
did not help.
It was horrid for 34 days.
Yeah.
I actually had to take anti-nausea medication every day I was in the hospital to eat the food and keep it down because it was awful. And it was, So
is that like the irony in that?
Yes.
With you're in a place that's supposed to be trying to help your health, and they feed you that crap.
I know. And so my family begged the staff, can they cook my food for me and bring it to me? They said no. Then I went to my psychiatrist directly and begged him, please, can my family cook my meals and bring them to me every day? I cannot eat this food. I am having so many digestive health issues. My stomach hurts, like constipation issues, everything. And I'll never forget what he said. And he looked at me and he said, no. And then he said, quite frankly, you had access to all of your organic food at home and you still ended up trying to kill yourself.
Wow.
So then he said...
Guy's got some serious bedside manner issues.
Yeah, he does.
Wow.
And then he said, when you get home, and he said, you know, if you get home, and if you want to get home, I highly recommend that ECT therapy.
If you get home.
He said, if you get home. And he said, when that happens, he goes, you can worry about your physical health. But right now, my priority is your mental health.
Is this guy still practicing? Is he still a licensed psychiatrist?
Yes. And for me, it was very demeaning. It was like, okay, little girl, Miss Health Coach, let me put you in your place.
Right.
And that's how it felt.
Yeah.
And for me being a nutrition coach, and anybody who's read a book on nutrition knows that what you put into your body dramatically impacts your mental health. Yeah. So and there's this new wave of nutritional psychiatry that's out there, yet there are still psychiatrists practicing in hospitals around the country that believe that diet has no impact on mental health.
I don't understand how anyone in today's world could believe that.
I don't know.
I can see there being varying degrees of how much you believe it affects.
Sure.
But to say that there's no effect is just it's baffling.
I don't know.
But you know what? Like, you know, a lot of people go to med school, but they're not all at the top of their class.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
There's still got to be some D's in there somewhere.
And you don't know the motivations behind some people. I mean, some people go into the teaching profession because they get summers off, not because they love kids. Right. So you don't know the motivations behind that. And, you know, for every doctor I met at that hospital that, you know, could have improved bedside manner, I met another doctor, another nurse that was wonderful and kind and compassionate. Yeah. So, you know, there was a mix at the hospital.
You know, it's my wife is in medicine. She does cardiac ultrasound.
Okay.
And she 100% got into it because of the patient care.
Sure.
She grew up with a sickly grandmother, and her grandparents on her mom's side were very sickly, and she grew up with her mom being the caretaker for her grandmother and stuff. And so getting into medicine was all about helping people and all about the patient care. And yet the medical industry is so profit driven that it's difficult for her to you know, do it. She still does the best she can, but a lot of times they're like, you need to crank these people through. We need to get more people through. And she's like, I'm trying to, you know, help these people. You know, it's
right. I know.
It's a conundrum.
I know. Believe me, like there was a psychiatric like alternatives that from the hospital, but there was this one program that I would have loved to have gone to, and it was they cook you all organic meals, and it's yoga and meditation and prayer and round the clock counseling and everything, and it was like $50,000 for a month. Yeah, and it's like you know, it's essentially for the programs for the rich and depressed.
Right.
So
that's the other thing. It's like, you know, if you've got all the money, then whatever you want, you can get. You'll get the best of everything. But if you're on the poverty line, like so many people, like the majority, you know, what do you have? Yeah. What do you have access to? Not a whole lot.
And I'm in a position where I'm blessed that, you know, my husband has excellent health insurance. So here I am at this psychiatric hospital unit, but I can actually have the insurance to afford this care. Yeah. So even though it's care that I have major issues with, I was still blessed that I had the care to begin with.
Right, it could have been a lot worse.
So,
Yeah, if it was all Medicaid or Medicare stuff.
Sure. But even now, so yes, I do take... I take an antidepressant and anti-anxiety medication. I'm not thrilled that I take it. I'm a very holistic person, but it's something where I'm sleeping every night again. And that is such a blessing to me. And I have the luxury of having the means for out-of-pocket health care expenses. So I go to a naturopathic doctor and I take the supplements and I do what I need to do, and it mitigates the side effects from the medications, and it helps me, you know, with my gut health, which then impacts my brain and everything. So I'm very fortunate that I have these opportunities, but then I also you know, I choose to be as healthy and as resilient as I can be, so that I make the choices to, you know, to better myself.
Yeah. So. Well, unfortunately, I'm running low on time here, but I'm thinking that there needs to be a part 2 down the line. We check back in with you and see how you can bounce back as going.
Yeah.
What's happening like in the near future or in the next couple of years that you have planned for your business and your family?
Yeah. So I've just launched the YouTube channel where I'm teaching the rebounding fitness classes. Research from I think it's Harvard Health University shows that regular exercise is as effective as antidepressants in some cases. So really to be a positive role model for using exercise as a tool for resilience, I think is really important. And then I'm also going to be launching on that YouTube page nutrition coaching support, and I'm going to be teaching cooking classes with my son too. So just teaching teaching people, how do you eat healthy? What does it actually look like? And how can it be fun? And how could it be easy? I'm not a chef. I don't, proclaim to be some master cook. I'm not. But how do you do that? And I'm also launching, as part of this business as well, I'm working on writing a book. So
Nice.
It's going to be called Back from the Brink. And I think I'm going to title it like with faith, like community and grit, you can bounce back from anything.
Nice.
So I'm working on that. And then I also have a division of the company. It's going to be called Bounce Back Bouquets. And that is...
Oh, the flowers.
Yes, the flowers.
That's right.
So it's if you can, so if somebody that is struggling with anxiety or depression or OCD, or they're lonely, you can give somebody with a bounce back bouquet that they can, display in their house to cheer them up and remind them that they're not alone. And I'm going to be offering greeting cards that I personally handwrite with inspirational messages about bouncing back from mental health. And the reason why I've launched that part of my company is it's art therapy was one of the tools that I used to help me to bounce back. And so my husband encouraged this for me, and I started buying premium silk flowers and making silk floral arrangements and using like one-of-a-kind vintage vases that I find on Facebook Marketplace or thrift shops.
Yeah.
And I'm making these beautiful silk floral arrangements, and I loved it so much, and it helped me to recover from the PTSD that I was experiencing after I got out of the hospital and what I had experienced there. So it helped me to bounce back from that. And I love it so much that I decided to launch that, as well to help me to sell the many, many, many flower arrangements that I've made that are sitting in a corner of my house and half of my bedroom.
But, it's really amazing to see where you started, where you've gotten to, and that journey, especially recently.
Yeah.
It's proof that human beings are resilient and you can bounce back.
Yes.
You're living proof that you can bounce back. And I'm glad that you're out there fighting the fight and helping people to bounce back.
Yeah.
Where can people find your website and all that stuff?
Sure. It's just www.youcanbounceback.com. And you can just email me, maria@youcanbounceback.com.
And you're going to have, you're on the socials and stuff like that.
Sure.
You got your YouTube channel on there.
Yeah.
So if you want to bounce around with Maria on the YouTubes, you can do that. That's very cool. We'll put all the links in the show notes for this. And thank you so much for making the trip from Buffalo to Rochester and not to plug myself too much, but when you're finished with the book, we record audiobooks in there.
Do you?
And,
great.
and we I specialize in audiobooks as read by the author.
Okay.
So we just did 2 in the last couple of months. So keep us in mind.
I will. That's wonderful to know. I'm actually thinking about going into launching a podcast of my own and starting there, and then taking the podcast and turning it into a book. And
nice.
One step at a time.
Yeah, one step at a time.
Yeah, and having a 5-year-old helps to keep me focused because I have to, otherwise.
Yeah, you want to do it all. You want to do all the things.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very cool. You're an inspiration.
Thank you.
I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how you succeed in this, because I know you will.
Thank you.
Because you are just a successful person, because that's deep down who you are. So thank you again for coming in, and we will see you next time on Positive Blatherings.
.com